Back to the war room we go. Mel Kiper and Field Yates are turning back the clocks to redraft the top 10 picks of the 2025 draft. That's coming up. Plus, as always, we respond to your questions, your takes, and your draft dreams live as First Draft starts right now. Hello again, everybody. And if we seem particularly fired up, it's because we are. We have a terrific show set for you today with Mel and Field and me, Greeny, as we get you set all week, every week here for the upcoming NFL draft. And this week, rather than looking forward, which we normally do, we're going to look back. We're going to look back at the week gone by. We're going to look back at the season gone by and the draft gone by and figure out who was it that got it right and who was it that got it wrong. So before we start diving into the redraft, I want to start with a little no huddle here. Field, I'll start with you.
All right.
Give us a 35,000 foot view of the 2025 NFL draft class, a little more than halfway into their first season. Generally speaking, what are we seeing as the trends that stand out, the good, the bad, the ugly, and anything in between?
A reminder that guys who can be amongst the most highly criticized players at their respective positions during the pre-draft process can be just fine. And a reminder that guys that are considered the surest of things can also need a little bit of time to get there. I'll use a couple of players to make that example. Throughout the pre-draft process, one of the biggest question marks was, is Tetairoa McMillan fast enough to even go in the first half of the first round? Well, as of right now, he leads all rookie wide receivers with 64 catches. He has the most receiving yards of all rookie receivers. He's just behind Emeka Egbuka for most receiving touchdowns. He had 8 catches for 130 yards and 2 scores in week 11. He looks every bit the part of a number 1 wide receiver. Conversely, Abdul was billed as perhaps the best player in the entire draft class. This guy is somebody that people thought deserved to be the number 1 overall pick. I'm not saying that won't prove to be the case at some point, but Abdul has been a very quiet factor for the Giants so far this season. As a matter of fact, he was benched for the first series of this past week's game against the Green Bay Packers due to a coach's decision. Basically, he got disciplined. So it was a reminder that just because you have the immense physical traits, you got to hold up your end of the bargain as a professional as well. And at least in this one instance, Carter did not. He's going to be a great player. I don't have doubts about that. But sometimes we probably overtax on things during the pre-draft process that when push comes to shove, find good, capable, solid football character players, and you're going to be A-okay.
Yeah, not to, I think, overreact to good or bad now because it's going to change. And some guys, Patrick Mahomes is a rookie year, only played the final game. We would have been talking about other quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson being one of those. 1983, John Elway against the Baltimore Colts goes 9 for 21, sacked 3 times. Steve DeBerg comes in and bails him out. You'd have been talking about Dan Marino was at the end of the first round ahead of John Elway if you'd have redrafted that. How'd that turn out? John Elway is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, 5 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl rings. So I think you have to be really careful. It's an exercise based on real time as we see it now. Obviously, if we would redraft this, say, in 2027, looking back, it may be a little different. So I think we have to realize in real time, this is the way I approached it, guys. And I don't know what Field did. Greeny, he doesn't know what I did. Field doesn't know what I did. I approached it as knowing what we know right now, based on how guys have performed. This is who we would have taken. Redrafting it, like I say, in real time today as we speak.
It's the beauty of the exercise. And this is an ever-changing, it's an ever-evolving process, as is the case with the careers of every single one of these players. So we can only base this on the information we have now, which is significantly more than we had back in April, because you've seen these guys acclimate to their teams and all that sort of thing. So there is cause for some change to be made. Again, last week, if you were with us, you may have heard that we went back and looked at a year ago's draft class, the year before that, all the quarterbacks that were in that draft class. And as always, you can scan the QR code that you see on your screen. You can catch up with anything you may have missed throughout this entire season. We're with you every single week leading up through bowl season. And then when we get to draft season, we'll be with you twice a week, every week leading up to Pittsburgh. Okay. As we get to Mel and Field's redraft, let me remind everyone of what the top 10 picks were in the 2025 NFL draft. The number 1 pick to Tennessee was Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. The number 2 pick, which was originally the property of the Cleveland Browns, was traded to Jacksonville on the clock, and the Jaguars took Travis Hunter. The Giants then took the aforementioned Abdul at 3. The Patriots took offensive tackle Will Campbell at 4. The Browns, having moved back with Jacksonville, selected Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. On to the second half here, we had the Raiders taking Ashton Genty, the Jets taking Armand Membou, the Panthers taking Tetairoa McMillan, the Saints drafting Kelvin Banks Jr., and the Bears taking the tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan. So those were the top 10 picks as they stand. Now, here's an interesting moment, because as Mel just alluded to, Mel doesn't know what Field did in redrafting the first 10, and Field doesn't know what Mel did. But I will tell you right now, Field, 8 of the first 10 picks that you now have redrafted are different. You and Mel are going opposite directions.
Love it.
On 80% of these picks. How does that make you feel?
That makes me very excited, Greeny, because it's going to make for some healthy debate here. And I'll be curious to see how many of the original 10 picks did not make Mel's next top 10, and how many players, as a result of that, cracked the top 10 that were not taken in the first 10 selections of the original draft. And just a note, Greeny, I want to make sure that I followed the rules correctly, and America knows. Number 2 in our redraft is still going to belong to Jacksonville, right? We are incorporating the trade as we go through our redrafted top 10 picks.
Yeah, one thing I will caution everybody that knows me and has been around me all these years, I tend to contradict some of the things I do say. And there's one little contradiction in here. And there's a contradiction because of being real time with expectations, real time with what we think they can be, yet maybe they haven't shown quite as much as they will. So you have to all factor in. I want to go against the ratings of what we thought of going into the draft so much, where we just discount everything we thought, Field. And I know you're going to be a naysayers. I don't want to discount everything I thought about a player.
Yeah.
And then we're halfway through the season now and say, let's take them to the curb. No, in some cases, in select cases, I'm not going to do that.
Wow. So I think the point is these 11 weeks are just part of the evaluation.
Yes.
You had the evaluation that you made through April, and now we have all this information that we've seen since then, training camps, mini camps, preseason, regular season, and the evaluation is a little bit more evolved, but it will continue to change as we go forward. Okay, I'm just going to start right at the top. The first pick in the draft was Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. Field Yates, in his redraft, has not tinkered with that. He still has Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami, going number 1.
Yeah,
Mel,
the correct pick.
In your redraft, who do you have as the number 1 pick to Tennessee?
Jaxson throws darts. Jaxson Dart. That's all I can do. I mean, there's no other way to go. Jaxson Dart was right in that mix with Shedeur and Cam Ward. And Jaxson Dart, he was coming out of Ole Miss. He would bring it up all the different names that came out of there that didn't get it done. Jaxson Dart, for not having Malik Neighbors. Cam Scatteraboo out now. The issues going on there. Brian Daboll's gone. Obviously, Jaxson Dart had nothing to do with that. He did everything he could. Does he have to learn how to protect that body? We said Josh Allen had to learn that, right? Obviously, stiff-arming guys with the right hand is not a smart thing. Then he gets hurt. Design running plays, maybe a little too many. Bottom line is Jaxson Dart wowed over this team, wowed over the rest of the league, wowed over every fan base. Most importantly, the Giant fan base, who now feels like, okay, in a division with Hurts and a division with Prescott and Jayden, we got a guy that can put us right there with any of them. And that's why Jaxson Dart, without question, based on what we've seen right now, it wasn't like back in the mock, Greeny, you remember my mock 1.0 in January of last year, I had Jaxson Dart going to New Orleans at 9. So I thought that would be a great pick for the Saints, all the reasons we talked about. So this guy didn't come from a third-round grade, and all of a sudden we're overreacting to what we've seen over a few games, over half the year, basically. I'm going Jaxson Dart without question at number 1 to the Tennessee Titans.
Okay, I pondered Jaxson Dart, but I stuck with Cam Ward, as Greeny mentioned, and I think the question comes down to this, is how much weight are you going to acknowledge that circumstances play into how these players look right now? You mentioned that Jaxson Dart has no Malik Neighbors and no Cam Scatteraboo. And yet I would take his supporting cast as currently constructed 100 times out of 100 over what Cam Ward is working with right now in Tennessee. It was basically a barren cupboard that GM Mike Borgonzi inherited when he took over that job back this offseason. And the first decision he had to make was, do I take a quarterback in Cam Ward, or do I trade that pick to move back and accumulate extra draft assets? The offensive line is a mess. Wide receiver room is the thinnest in all of the NFL. They have zero running game whatsoever. Yes, Cam Ward has been inconsistent. The accuracy has not been ideal. There have been too many turnovers. The big time throws that I see from Cam Ward, those are the ones that keep me coming back for more and keep me thinking that this player is going to one day be considered special in the NFL. Jackson's done a ton to prove that he belongs and he was worth every bit of the first round investment and a whole lot more than the Giants made in him. But Cam Ward holds strong at number 1 in my redraft.
Boo hoo hoo. Boo hoo hoo. Let's stop the pity party field.
What?
Let's stop the pity party. This whole thing about he's got better. You weren't saying that about Will Levis last year and the year before.
Who cares?
Will Levis was in Tennessee playing better than Cam Ward did in Tennessee,
stop
by
now.
the way.
Come on.
Playing better as a rookie. Nobody was giving him a pity party.
Yeah.
Nobody was saying, oh, that supporting cast in Tennessee is not very good. That infrastructure is not very good. Brian Callahan, Cam Ward regressed under him. What happened with Will Levis as well, playing out there with a right shoulder injury that required surgery. So I like how we give him, because the people didn't like Will, and he was a second-round pick. Let's not give Will Levis any excuses or any breaks. We're going to give Cam Ward a ton of them.
Yeah,
so
he's the first overall pick in the draft.
Both ways,
right
Phil.
away you should. Yes, you can. He's the first overall pick in the draft. Of course,
Who
you're going to
cares?
give me a long
Who
leash.
cares?
Because Will Levis had shown over 2 years that he was not going to be.
Will Levis,
going
into that draft, some people thought he could go in the top group, and a lot of people, if things would have fallen right, he'd have been a first-round pick.
Well,
we're getting too wrapped up in where they went. It's how they performed.
Yeah.
Will, over a 2-year period, had his moments where he looked pretty doggone good, and they overreacted to some. I saw Josh Allen in the end zone yesterday do the same thing to Tyreek Stevenson did in the Bear game, that first game, and they got thrown under the bus and embarrassed by his own coach, okay, in the next week against the Jets after that. So my point is, Cam Ward now, with Brian Callahan gone, right, so he was regressing under Callahan, is starting to hopefully to make some progress. But some of the things we were concerned about with Ward are still there. And to say that he's played better than Jaxson Dart, we know he hasn't.
He hasn't, correct.
Well, Dart's got a better supporting cast. Right, I'm just saying, Field, yeah. I never heard anybody making any excuses or giving the benefit of the doubt to a previous quarterback. It's just because he was an early second-round pick. We can't do it for him, but we can do it for the number 1 pick overall.
We can.
I don't see the point there.
We can, because when you're drafted number 1 overall, first of all, it's a testament to just how bad the team was the year prior, right? You have the number 1 overall pick, not via a trade. And second of all, you are going to be given every chance to both succeed and potentially fail, right? We need to see, we need to play out the string before we say, okay, this guy is not it. The economics of the NFL matter in this case to me. If you put Jaxson Dart in Tennessee, maybe it's a little bit better, but I don't know. This is, again, as I say, the Giants and the Titans are the two teams that up to this point have fired their head coach, and yet it feels like Jaxson Dart, who has also had his head coach fired and his number 1 receiver and his number 1 running back both gone for the year. He feels like he's in a much, much better set of infrastructure than what we have with Cam Ward.
So we have a variety of social responses
that
I can read for you here, and because they're all over the board, as you might expect. Aaron tweets at us, Jaxson Dart is not going first overall in a redraft. Well, Aaron, you stand corrected. yes, he is. And yes, he did.
No, he's not.
At Lion Claw, here's the really interesting one. At Lion Claw tweets, the Giants would be better with Ward, the Titans worse with Dart, who has the benefit of the better team. That's really the sort of the argument Field is making.
Yes.
For the record, I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm just reading it. And the third one from Sace tweets, as good as Dart's been, I'm not sure he'd have done anything in Tennessee. That entire roster and staff are garbage. Here's the thing that I would want to remind everyone of. A year ago at this time, we would have been putting a lot of people ahead of Caleb Williams.
Yes.
Because he inherited a terrible situation with, actually, he didn't have terrible talent around him, but it was a
just overmatched coaching staff.
With bad coaching. The whole thing was just a mess. And now here he is a half a year later, and look at him. So could that be the situation with Cam Ward a year from now? Hopefully, for everyone's sake, especially his. But no.
And I agree. I just make the point about the previous quarterback, because the offensive line was terrible. It was a turnstile, and the receivers were dropping balls. And this quarterback has dealt with the same thing. It's
gotten worse.
So, again, it didn't get worse. It did not get
worse. It's gotten worse.
Did you watch the season that year? Did you watch that second year? And
we watched the past 2 years. This is worse.
A bad line, and they were dropping balls all over the place. All I'm saying is, Cam Ward's not going to 3rd round in my redraft. I like Cam Ward. I like them better than anybody did coming out. And I still do. I got high hopes for Cam. But to say that right now, based on what we've seen and what we knew going in of Jaxson Dart, And he has not had Neighbors, and now he doesn't have Scadaboo. And it's not like he's got all-world players all around him. And it's not like Tennessee's got a bunch of nothing around Cam
Yes,
Ward.
they do. Yes, they do. Who's the something around Tennessee? Who's the player that you say to yourself, we're building our roster around that guy?
Well, they thought going in that they had some pretty good young players. Ayumana had some drops, right? Ridley got a ton of money. He's had drops. I'm not saying you're wrong, Field. I'm not saying the offensive line, the issues there. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's interesting that we're defending and making excuses for a young quarterback when a previous young quarterback was dealing with the same thing or worse, and you guys were ripping him. That's all I'm saying. Just be fair. That's all I'm saying. Just be fair.
Ooh.
So taking Will Levis out of this, because we've obviously touched a nerve with Mel, here's what I will say, is that if my team, which is the New York Jets, who have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 drafts, could trade 3 of them for either of the 2 quarterbacks, I would rather have Dart. And I based on what I've seen from Dart and Field, I don't disagree with your general take that things are worse in Tennessee than they are with the Giants. I agree the Giants, I think, are a better situation than the Titans.
Yes.
But to me, I've seen some stuff from Dart that suggests he has a magic quality about him. Yeah. And I don't know if Cam Ward does or doesn't. And I hope that he does. And again, to Mel's point, Cam Ward is coming up in his draft soon. It's not as though we're dropping him completely out of the realm of possibility. But I guess, Field, what I'm trying to say is sometimes with young quarterbacks, you're just looking for something that says to you, wait a minute, there's something special here. And I feel like we've seen that from Dart. Do you not feel that way?
Oh, I feel like we've seen it. He's going to go very high in my redraft as well. And on top of that, Greeny, playing in New York requires a certain disposition at quarterback. It requires a certain confidence that if there's any doubt about Jaxson Dart's confidence, there should not be any more. He carries himself with a swagger that is undeniable, right? He is fit for New York. The Giants are in a very, very healthy spot. I'm sticking with my Cam Ward stock. I'm remaining on the Cam Ward Island here, whatever you want to call it. I am a believer in this young player. Tennessee has a ton of work to do this offseason, but as we sit here going into Week 12, they also have the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft. So things are looking hopefully
that's crazy, Greg, to think that this redraft should take 2 hours, because that's what we really need. We really do. We really do. What a first pick,
until April 23rd. I'm free until April 23rd, so let's keep it rolling here.
I'm going to bring this thing in 50 minutes if it's the last thing I ever do.
Okay, here we go.
In the interest of that, let's move it along. At number 2, both of you left Travis Hunter where he is. Now, Hunter currently is injured, and it was an injury that took place in a practice, and not even clear to me if he's coming back this season or not.
No.
But I think it is reasonable for everyone to say that this season was a massive disappointment relative to what we were hoping he might be. And I think I would argue, and again, you guys are the experts and the analysts, I'm just the host, but I do see this, and I felt this way at the time. If Travis Hunter is not both an above-average receiver and an above-average corner at the same time, then there's no way in the world he was worth the trade that Jacksonville made to get him. And I saw nothing this season that suggested to me he's ever going to be that. In fact, if I had to guess, I would guess that at some point relatively soon, he and they are going to have to pick a position and let him play that and try and excel at it. So I guess, Mel, I'll start with you. Knowing that, or at least if you agree with that, do you still believe Travis Hunter is worthy of being the 2nd pick in the draft, which is where you left him?
It was a lot to give up. We said on draft day, that was a lot to give up. But I think the fact of the matter is, what I would do, and I said this on draft day, Greeny, when we talked about Travis Hunter and Field, and there was this. You pick your spots on the defensive side. He's exclusive wide receiver. He's helping Trevor. He's doing this thing at wide receiver. And then you pick your spots. Late in the first half, when a team has possession there and they're getting the first possession to start the second half. Pick your spots there. Late in the game, for last 5, 7, 8 minutes, last couple possessions of the game, where these games usually come down to the wire. Okay, so pick your spots when he's out there covering guys, right? Pick your spots on defense, but have him playing offense, doing both. You can't be full-time doing both. It's got to be defense. I say, remember, what was the word I used? Remember, sprinkled in? I said, sprinkle him in. Well, if he's going exclusive on defense, he's going to be a lockdown corner. Sprinkle him in on offense. But it's going to be exclusive offense, sprinkle him in on defense. Sprinkle's got to be the word here. Sprinkle him in.
Agreed on that. We were seeing some flashes at wide receiver right before the injury that had me a little bit encouraged, Greeny. What is interesting is that if you go, by the end of this year, we'll obviously know where that 2026 first-round pick lands that Jacksonville owes to the Browns. there's a chance it's in the 20s, which if you go by any of the draft value charts, pick 5 plus a pick in the 20s is perhaps even a discount in terms of moving up to number 2 overall. The error of their ways may not prove, when we go to the results and not the process part of it, to be the price they paid, but rather the player that they took. I looked at this through the prism of, if they're still making this move up from 5 to 2, I think they're doing so only for a player that this organization believes has a chance to be generational. On top of that, while I am not totally sold on Trevor Lawrence, if you're moving up from 5 to 2, what do we normally see teams move up for? A quarterback. I don't know that the Jaguars would make the selection of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and the injury robs us and Travis Hunter of a chance to keep improving, as you said, and keep getting through and getting better. These guys are only rookies. They were starting to really show those flashes of brilliance and that dynamic ability, and we don't have a chance because of injury. So it's unfortunate, but Travis, they gave up a lot to get up there to get him. But again, we're not talking about him any differently now in terms of the expectations and the way they should handle him than we were a month before the draft or on draft day this past year.
So let me just finish this part of the conversation, and then we'll move it along more quickly.
Yeah, because 3 is easy. Yeah.
But with this part of the conversation, if we thought he were only a wide receiver, Mel just picked the offensive side of the ball, and we're sprinkling him in on the defensive side.
Yep.
And I told you right now that purely as a wide receiver, you could either have Travis Hunter or Tetairoa McMillan.
Tetairoa McMillan.
Or Travis Hunter or Emeka Egbuka.
My point is, I'm taking Travis because I know what he can do.
Yeah.
When you really can't, Greeny, not factor in. And I get what you're saying. If you say he's just a receiver, but he's not. So I think it is. I agree with you there. If there's just a receiver, those other guys will be right there. But when you say that he can be in those situations on the defensive side, a guy that can lock on and cover a guy and help you, prevent that team from scoring a field goal touchdown late, first half, end of the game, that value, that added value, that rare two-way ability that Travis Hunter possesses is the reason why he was who he was on the board and the reason why we're still putting him up there at that second spot.
All right, fair enough. I'm a skeptic. I don't want to be painted as that because I love the kid. Everyone loves the kid. There's nothing not to love about the kid. I want to see it work. But I have and will continue to have major questions about whether that trade made sense.
All fair. Yep.
Okay, so at number 3, the New York Giants, I will just tell everyone in advance, they flipped their picks. Yep. So Mel moved up Cam Ward, I guess in this case moved down Cam Ward to number 3, and it's you, Field, who moved up Jaxson Dart. So Mel, if it makes you feel better, Field did show some love for the season that Jaxson Dart is having and moved him all the way up to number 3.
He would have been.
Now I'm off the hook.
You would have been discontinued from this podcast, Field, if you didn't do that. Okay.
Wait, does that mean I get the rest of the day off or no?
Cut out of the organization if you didn't have Jaxson Dart going here. And for Cam, you can't drop any further. Cam's going to have to learn that what you got away with in college, you're not going to get away with in the NFL all the time. What Mahomes does, everybody's not Mahomes. So again, you can't put Cam any further, and you certainly can't put Dart any further down in this third spot.
Yep.
All right, so at 4, the Patriots, both of you have them taking Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU, which is who they took. And I will read this tweet from Lion Claw. This is the second half of one that I had read earlier. He writes, Will Campbell is suffering from typical drafts where quarterbacks, defensive linemen, wide receivers go number 1. Why can't we admit he's the best player of the draft and helping May look like a superstar?
Yeah.
So positional value aside, has Campbell been that level of good in his rookie year, Field?
I wouldn't go best player in the draft level good for Will Campbell here, but what I would say, and you guys know I was a gigantic Will Campbell guy in the pre-draft process, is that the kind of guy who I thought had a pretty clear path to a 10-year left tackle career in the NFL, and that's what it looks like to me now. And I think the most interesting part about this is not that the Patriots stick with Will Campbell, it's that the Patriots bypass Abdul Carter. And I want to say this about just like the process involved with taking the player, is that it may be that Will Campbell makes a couple of Pro Bowls, maybe 0, who knows? And maybe Abdul Carter goes on to become an All-Pro 3 times. It's way too early to write either of these players' futures in stone. What I will say is that if it is not obvious how much of a program fit Will Campbell is with everything that Mike Vrabel wants his New England Patriots to be, then you're not paying attention. On top of the fact that this kid has been excellent for them. Excellent. Will Campbell also looks exactly like what the Patriots want their players to look like under Mike Vrabel. Tough, dependable,
you're pairing pair the left tackle with a young quarterback. And that's what we said, pairing the left tackle with an organization with Vrabel and company, Josh McDaniels, everything working in New England. We talk about organizational stability, organizational competence. Then we also have organizational incompetence, right? How organizations can ruin quarterbacks and ruin other players. And we've seen that throughout the course of the league already this year. We're going to see it every year, each and every season. So we always think we got the best coaches in the world. We don't, okay? We don't. Unfortunately, this league, it's the NFL, it's the best in the world. They're not the best coaches in the world. Some of these guys are there, and we say, why are they there? They're not getting the job done to the level they should. So organizational incompetence exists, organizational competence exists, and in New England, that's way up here.
So Will Campbell, we both agree, you both agree, has been terrific. At number 5, the Cleveland Browns, both of you have making a change.
Mm-hmm.
Mel has the Browns taking Abdul Carter, the rusher from Penn State, who, as we mentioned, has had an up and I think mostly quiet rookie season with the Giants. And you mentioned that he was benched for the start of their game this past weekend. That was for sleeping through a recent walkthrough.
Come on.
Take that for what it's worth.
Take that as, come on now. Metaphorically wake up, literally wake up as well. Come on. Like, this is the NFL. You're the third pick in the draft. You make, what, $12 million a year right out of the gates. Like, you got to be a star, not just on the field, but off of it as well.
And it comes in the first week that after the coach was fired and the interim coach takes over and all the rest of it. Not a great look. But not disqualifying, at least not in Mel's eyes, particularly as he has him at 5. And then Field, you have Armand Membou, offensive tackle, New York Jets, who's had a very solid year on the right side for the Jets at number 5. So let me start with Mel on that one. I think people might be a little surprised to see you leave Carter this high. It has not been the rookie season that had been projected for him. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, I love the word metaphorically. I feel I was going to bring into the whole.
That's what I'm here for.
I love that. In terms of Abdul Carter, I didn't want to drop him too far because I know it's a half a sack, right? What's he got? No, he's great. The pressure of the quarterback hasn't been half a sack. At the end of the day, you keep expecting him to keep getting better and better and to build on this. And in Cleveland, you'd also have Myles Garrett. What did Myles have? 4 more sacks yesterday. What's he got? 15 already.
15 for the year.
It's amazing what he's been able to do. What Josh Allen's been able to do with touchdowns and rushing touch already tied Cam Newton, and what Myles has already done. I think he went past Lawrence Taylor, didn't he, yesterday? With most 12-plus sacks in a year.
Yes, 6 straight.
6 straight years with 12 or more sacks. It's been amazing. So when you have Myles, who I said in Cleveland, they wanted Myles Garrett and somebody opposite him, right? Remember, we even talked about that when they were picking 2. Could Abdul Carter be that pick? Remember it, too. We said a lot of people thought it should have been Abdul Carter. So when I got to 5, I said, okay, Membou was tempting. Because guess what? That offensive line needs help. And he's had a heck of a year. So again, when I talk about the left tackle paired with a young quarterback, that's what I was looking for. It's a right tackle. So I went with Carter. I didn't want to drop a guy down too far. And with Cleveland, with Myles there, Garrett, with Carter there, with Garrett, to learn and develop from him and be on that opposite side. That's why I went with Carter slightly. And I was tempted. I didn't know what you did, but I had Membou down. I actually crossed them off. Then I went back to Carter. Membou because of that O-line. And I think Shedeur's the answer at quarterback moving forward. I still believe that. He's going to need that fortress in front of him. Didn't have it, obviously, yesterday. That was forget it, no chance. Bottom line is Membou would help them there. Membou or Carter, I don't think you could argue with here in Cleveland.
I just love your determination on the Shedeur stuff, Mel, but that's a different conversation for a different time.
I watched the game yesterday. I thought Kid competed. It's a shame that they
as a Ravens fan, you want him to stick around for 10 years. That's what you're saying. Is this your Ravens?
I'll give it up after a while, but if you're giving up on Shedeur Sanders right now, you're an idiot.
Okay, fair enough. Armand Membou is my pick here. He's been excellent for the New York Jets. It's a meat and potatoes position, but when I watch the NFL, if there's a position other than quarterback where I feel like the supply is way lower than the demand, it's quality offensive lineman. Armand Membou, you, my friend, have been worth every bit. That 6th overall pick for the New York Jets. The Browns take advantage of the opportunity to draft him here. Still have a lot of optimism surrounding Abdul Carter. We'll get to him in just a moment or two. That being said, Membou, that's a testament to Membou more so than a reflection of the fact that I think Carter's going to be great. Membou has already been excellent for the Jets.
And by the way, just was a social media, I'm not calling Field an idiot. Field knows that Shedeur Sanders still has a really good
you call me an idiot. That's okay.
You know Shedeur can still be a really good quarterback in this league. You would not be dumb enough to say that he's going to be not what you thought he would be based on yesterday where he competed. He made some accurate throws. He had him in a position where he almost tied that football game late. He showed mobility and escapability. He hung in there without getting any reps with the first. He had the first time I ever threw to Jerry Jeudy. I could have put Shedeur in here, but I'm not going to be. I would have been called an idiot because he went in the 5th round. So I'm going to respect that. But Shedeur Sanders, give him time, give him some reps with the first team finally, which we talk about organizational incompetence, okay? And we're getting these guys ready. We're grooming these young. We have a plan. We're doing it. We have everything in place for these young quarterbacks, and you got a backup quarterback who's one play away from being in there in a critical game where the Ravens could have been 4-6 instead of 5-5, and you got Shedeur out there dealing with guys. Caden says offensive line, never heard Shedeur. Yeah. Jerry Jeudy never threw a ball to him. I mean, come on. And to compete the way he did till the bitter end and had them, down there. Forget the stats. John Elway came to Baltimore back in '83, and I think it was like 9 for 21 with 3 sacks. Josh Allen, a couple times in his career, I wrote what Josh was. Last year against Houston, by the way. You know what Josh Allen was in that game? 9 for 30. Wow. 9 for 30, right? Okay. When he played his first year as a rookie, came to Baltimore against Ravens, he was 6 for 15 coming into that game after Peterman had struggled mightily. So, again, forget the stat chart with Shedeur. Realize what he was dealing with. And the Ravens, after his first 2 completions, sent everything but the kitchen sink after him, right? And the interception, he was getting hit at the knee level. No, I am strong on Shedeur, as strong on Shedeur now as Green knows I was on draft day.
I love it. I totally got us off tangent there. I think Armand Membou has been great. He'd be a great Brown in this free draft as well.
Yeah, I would just sort of underline to finish this, something going on in Cleveland does not pass the smell test. Like why you would have Shedeur, why you drafted him in the first place. I get that it was the 5th round, but why is he your backup quarterback if you're literally as a rookie giving him no snaps whatsoever the entire season, and the offensive linemen have never heard his cadence? Something just isn't right.
Yeah. And also, just to put an exclamation, I'll just finish this up. Go back to the preseason. The only reason Shedeur started against Carolina because Dylan Gabriel had the hamstring.
Right.
And Dylan Gabriel had the hamstring. Shedeur is not playing until like the second half in that game. So, no, they had a plan to put Shedeur on the shelf for a year. But when he's the backup, he's one play away. Right. So you got to get him prepared. You got to get those offensive linemen, those receivers working with them some. And to say it's not. That's why I said remember what I said about Bryce Young when he went into that first year last year. Remember they gave him no preseason reps. And he goes out early and says, you can't do that. I understand you're worried about injury. You got to give a guy a chance to go out there and play with his team. And so some of the things I say, organizations ruin quarterbacks. Most 8 times out of 10, it's not the quarterback, it's the organization. There's always going to be quarterbacks. I'll bring up one of my guys, Jimmy Clausen. Didn't matter, right? I get it. But 8 times out of 10, it's the organization that ruins the quarterback, and the quarterbacks would be good, and we're finding that out in the NFL all over the place. And we're going to find out with one of the quarterbacks I talked about a little earlier in this podcast that I will not mention now that was unfairly criticized over a 2-year period, but we'll leave that alone because we got to move on.
Okay, so let's move on. That one was my fault, Field.
That's all timer right there. That was great. That was great.
We move on. At number 6, the Raiders selected Ashton Genty in the draft. Neither of you have them staying there. Yeah. Field, you have them taking Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Texas. Mel, you have them taking Tetairoa McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona, who has been spectacular. And because he plays on a team that maybe doesn't get as much attention, with a quarterback situation that maybe isn't as good as the one that Egbuka has with Baker Mayfield, I think most people close their eyes and say, Emeka Egbuka has been the best rookie receiver in the league this year. But Mel, you're making a big vote here that it's actually been Tet McMillan.
Yeah, T-Mac's been really good, really
awesome.
Good. And, you think about with Bryce having him in Carolina with Las Vegas. Las Vegas, to me, and I thought going in, this was a good spot for that young quarterback to be brought into the mix. They're going to need that at some point. Gino's not going to be able to play. What's he, 35 field, 35, 36 years of age. And that division, come on, with Bo Nix and obviously with Justin Herbert and the great Patrick Mahomes, the greatest of all time, where you can't be a distant force. So they got to figure that out at that point. So I could have done something here that I didn't want to do because that would be another 2 hours, but I didn't want to do that. But Shedeur should be a Raider at some point. If Cleveland doesn't want him, why wouldn't the Raiders want him? I don't get that. But I'm going T-Mac here to the Raiders. Need area. T-Mac slightly over Egbuka. I always say you get the running backs down the road. I like Ginty, but T-Mac with his 54 catches for Bryce Young and a key entity, 4 more catches in 8 games. So T-Mac's done a really good job as a rookie. He has been everything that we thought he could be, and probably a little bit more.
Going to be fun to discuss Jeremiah Love in the upcoming draft process because he's going to have a grade very similar to, maybe even better than Ashton Genty's from last year.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree, but we have to be very smart about how we account for running backs being taken early. Not that we haven't said that a million times before, but the Raiders got in over their skis. I gave them Kelvin Banks. I thought about Abdul Carter to pair with Max Crosby, but the offensive line has been absolutely woeful this season. Now, you can tell me that Colton Miller, their left tackle, is their best offensive lineman. That would be accurate. I can also take Kelvin Banks and make him a right tackle if that's what this comes down to. I think Kelvin Banks has also been really solid this year for the New Orleans Saints. One of those guys that got overthought during the pre-draft process. Water eventually found its level during draft day, and the Raiders, in this circumstance, take him 3 picks sooner than where he ended up. He actually was my pick for the Raiders in my final mock draft prior to the draft. If I could say it all over again, if I could do it all over again, maybe they would heed my mock draft advice.
All right, number 7, the New York Jets. I have a tweet here from Adam, who tweets, Membou has been great for the Jets. Wouldn't change that pick at all.
Nope.
And Mel, you didn't. You left Armand Membou right where he was. Field, you had Membou already off the board by this time, so you gave the Jets Abdul Carter. With both of those.
Can I say one thing real quick, Grady?
Yeah.
If it wasn't Membou here, I would have had Tyler Warren. Ooh. Tyler Warren would have been the pick if it wasn't Membou. If Membou was gone. So when I had Membou here and I thought about him for Cleveland, and I think Tyler Warren for what he's done, and we'll get to him in a minute, but that would have been the pick for the Jets. But Membou has been outstanding, and certainly for you taking him at Cleveland, made a perfect sense.
Yeah, and I'm just sticking with Abdul Carter. Again, there's no offensive tackle. If there was an offensive tackle worthy of being taken this high, I would have probably considered that. A Josh Simmons type for Kansas City. He's missed some time this season, has looked good when available, but I ended up sticking with Abdul Carter here. The Jets, of course, have some decisions to make on some pass rushers they already have on their roster. They nearly traded Jermaine Johnson at the deadline. Abdul Carter, still a guy who I think 3 years from now we could be discussing as a 12-sack per season guy who has all-pro upside.
All right, so then on we go. At number 8, the Carolina Panthers, who actually took Tetairoa McMillan. And in this mock field, you have them taking Tetairoa McMillan. And Mel, you already had Tet McMillan off the board, as we just discussed, so you gave them Egbuka. And I would just be curious right now. So both of you have Tet McMillan ahead of Egbuka, which is the order they went in the draft. Egbuka started off with such a bang this year and then had the injury. But I'm interested to hear, Mel, the difference in the evaluation. I can see that they're close, but the difference in the evaluation, McMillan over Egbuka.
You're splitting hairs, really. You really are splitting hairs. You can go either way on that, Greeny. Emeka Egbuka was a heck of a player. We said solid in all areas, the way he would block, the route running, the hands, how unselfish a player he was. And what Ohio State has done in terms of just developing wide receivers has been amazing. They got a few more coming into the league not too distant future. So I think you look at Ohio State, hits keep coming there. But Egbuka, McMillan, like I said, either one, whatever way you wanted to go. To me, Field, you can settle it. I think it's a push.
It's close, but I think one of them just has slightly superior physical traits, and that being Tetairoa McMillan. Obviously, the speed was a big question mark on McMillan. It was kind of a question on Emeka Egbuka as well, but we've seen some of the stuff from Tetairoa McMillan as a perimeter receiver, some of the separation skills, some of the catch radius opportunities, and some of the run after catch stuff that only solidifies what I think we felt throughout the pre-draft process. This guy is a true number 1 wide receiver in the NFL.
So we have Egbuka and McMillan and all the rest off the board. And then at number 9 with the Saints, Field does have Egbuka going. So you have the receivers going back to back.
Yep.
And Mel has Kelvin Banks going, who we've talked about already. And then we get to number 10. and that's where the Bears surprised at least me, Mel, on draft night by taking Colston Loveland, who I think has been terrific, by the way. Colston Loveland.
Excellent. Yep.
He's excellent. He's an excellent player. And you have them taking Tyler Warren. So jumping Warren, which was the order I expected them to go with, to be honest with you, going back to last year's draft. I thought Warren would go ahead of Loveland. The Bears went the opposite direction. Mel, you have them taking Warren instead this time. Let's hear the thinking.
Yeah, so Warren's been spectacular for Daniel Jones. And I had Warren ahead of Colton. This is no critique of Colston Loveland. I mean, if Warren's at the Jets, then Loveland's here. And I didn't have it that way. I had Membou still there. If I'd have changed that, it would have been Colston Loveland going and remaining with Chicago. This was not a bad pick. This was not a questionable pick. This is a heck of a pick. Colston Loveland is a talented young man, and Colston Loveland over the last 3 games would have 13 receptions, but he's only been targeted this year 3+ times a game. Tyler Warren's been targeted 6+ times a game. Correct. So it's a little bit difference there. Tyler Warren, when you put them both together and you say, okay, you got to make a pick here. That's all it boiled down to for me, Greeny and Field, is I had to make a pick for Chicago. Warren, because I had, like I say, Membou there. I kept Membou with the Jets. I had Membou up. I would have had Warren to the Jets. That would have put Loveland still here. So Field, I didn't change it. You have to make a call here. Obviously, you have Loveland and Warren both still on the board, as I did. I gave the nod to Tyler Warren for the reasons I just talked about.
Yeah, this is not how it works. So it'll be interesting if the conversation, what the conversation would be if those two players were reversed in terms of which teams they were on in real life right now. I think the Bears felt like they had a player who's not at the same level as Tyler Warren, but has a more similar style of play to Tyler Warren in Cole Kmet, right? A player already on their roster. Loveland, maybe the better mover in the middle of the field, kind of has some rare separation skills, and he has been excellent whenever the Bears have thrown him the football. 4 names I considered. Loveland sticking with the pick. Tyler Warren, who has been amazing. I thought about him. Ashton Genty, who, with the way this offensive line is blocking right now, he would be going off in Chicago, much more so than he has been in Las Vegas. But I ended up taking a player who has fallen, I guess, the most of anybody on the board, basically, which is Mason Graham, defensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns. It has not been some otherworldly start to his career, but I do think we have seen some flashes here for Mason Graham. The Bears this offseason did sign, after he was released by the Falcons, Grady Jarrett. To me, a suggestion. They were thinking about interior defensive line. They took Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M in the 3rd round, so probably would have been a need for the Chicago Bears, and I still believe in the disruptive skills of Mason Graham. So a good value, in my opinion, at pick number 10.
Yeah, this had to be about Caleb, though, Phil. This had to be about making Caleb.
That's fair.
Yeah. It had to be all in. Caleb's got to be getting some more weapons. You mentioned Kmet. You got Dunze emerging more. You got guys around him.
Luther Burden.
Yeah, there's no question that this was all about Caleb and Ben Johnson saying, okay, let's get Caleb a big-time weapon. And Colston Loveland is that guy. Warren Loveland, what Warren's done with Daniel Jones, what Loveland's doing with Caleb. Hey, like I say, somebody's Egbuka, McMillan. It's basically a push. So there you go.
Going to be this Bears offense next year, I presume, will feature more of both Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. It's a pretty intriguing trio to build a passing game around of Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and of course Rome Odunze, who has taken a gigantic leap forward this season.
And Kyle Monungai, let's give Kyle credit. Rutgers,
7th round pick, baby.
7th round pick. Isaiah Pacheco out of Rutgers, 7th round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? This Rutgers football program with the DBs and some of the players that have gone and slid further than they should have with Greg Schiano and that coaching staff doing a heck of a job. Kyle Monungai has been a nice addition as a 7th round pick. So there you go.
The Bears are maybe the most pleasant surprise, or among the more pleasant surprises in the NFL. Caleb Williams coming along super quickly. And so in just a moment that we have before we wrap up, that does it for our 2005 redraft. As you can see, Mel and Field, a lot of the same players, not all of them in the same places. And the big disagreement at the top, will it be Cam Ward? Will it be Jaxson Dart? Those are 2 players that will be compared against each other, we would think, for the foreseeable future,
yes,
as are the quarterbacks from the previous draft class, as we discussed last week. Yeah. And I thought this was a very interesting weekend for them. So as sort of a follow-up to the conversation we had last week, I wanted to just throw this in. Caleb Williams just continues to ascend. Jaden Daniels, the injury, brutal. It brings up the really big concern about him, which is whether his body is built to last over the course of an NFL career. Drake May right now might very well be the most valuable player in the entire NFL. He's been incredible. But I wanted to just get quick takes from the 2 of you. Bo Nix played great, and it looks like the Broncos are ready to one-seat Kansas City. So there's 4 of the 6 guys, and their stories are fairly easy to tell. The other 2, I'm hearing a lot of questions about J.J. McCarthy. It's only been 5 starts, and sometimes we're very quick to judge these guys. And Mel, I know you are always one to defend young players who haven't gotten anywhere near the chance to show the totality of what they can do. But through no fault of his, he winds up playing in the same class as all these other guys. He winds up playing on a team that decided not to keep Sam Darnold, that let Daniel Jones walk out the door, that decided not to sign Aaron Rodgers, and that won 14 games a year ago, and he seems to really be struggling. Mel, would you say right now there are concerns in your mind about J.J. McCarthy in this early part of his career?
Yeah, if you could just bottle a quarter, a few series, and use that and bottle it and make it consistent over the course of the entire game, which is tough to do, but say even 3/4 of the game, right? With JJ, like I said, even against the Baltimore Ravens a couple weeks ago, those first couple series field, I was worried. I told you, I said, boy, if he's feeling it, he's going to be lighting us up. It's going to be a long day for the Baltimore Ravens. Then your airmail and throws. That's the difference when you see quarterbacks that are missing bad. There's some bad misses and some erratic, inconsistent games where you don't see from the first quarter on a level of consistency, where it's bad for a while, then it's really good in the fourth, right? We've seen that even with JJ as well. And saw it yesterday where, he can do what he needs to do, but like Bo Nix has been doing this year. The fourth quarter was what he was getting critiqued for. Hey, you got to be better for 3/4 or you don't need that. Have to have those dramatic comebacks. So what we saw with Bo after a great year one fell back a bit. Now he's resurfaced yesterday again, and maybe the critics have been silenced a bit. But for JJ, I said going into that draft field, and I'd love to hear what your final thoughts were on him coming in. I didn't know. We think we know about most guys, right? We're going to be right. We're going to be wrong. But JJ, I had no clue. I said it. I had no clue. I had no clue on Trey Lance after only starting out one game. Remember that final year? I had no clue about JJ. And I'll say right now, I still don't know what kind of NFL quarterback he's going to be because he shows flashes of brilliance and he looks like Nuke LaLoosh sometimes, right? From Bull Durham fame. So I just say, can he just find a way? And he's got the quarterback whisperer there with him, right? Yeah, so, can O'Connell and McCarthy together bottle what we've seen in a quarter or sometimes a half? Yeah, we'll see about that. But hey, tell me about McCarthy, Phil. What you thought of him coming in? What you think of him now?
Smallest sample size of any of the quarterbacks in that year's draft class. Of course, we had Bo, Jaden, and Michael Penix, who all played at least 5 years in college, right? 5 full seasons at minimum for those 3 quarterbacks. JJ was not only did he barely play for Michigan, but he barely was asked to throw the football. Remember Blake Corum that final season had 22 rushing touchdowns to basically help lead that offense to the national championship along with that dominant defense. On top of that, signature moments were hard to come by, not because of JJ's fault, but because of the fact that they were so good defensively that they were often just winning games with defense and running the ball. He was a gigantic projection. JJ McCarthy is a new father. I believe he had a kid between weeks 1 and week 2 of this NFL season. I'm sure he spends a lot of his time, whatever free time he has, when he is at home with his newborn, trying to find ways to calm his newborn down, right? Kids, they cry a lot. They are emotional. JJ feels like he needs to calm himself down before each game, right? The intensity almost feels like it's gone a beat too far for JJ McCarthy. Every throw that he throws is a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, like a Mariano Rivera fastball to close out a game, right? It feels to me like JJ needs to just dial everything down a little bit and play with maybe like less thought, because in the fourth quarter, when you got to have it against the Bears on 2 separate occasions, it's been pretty good from JJ. It finally feels like that's the one spot, for whatever reason, where he stops thinking and just starts playing, but he's got to dial it down a few notches because all these missed throws on guys that are wide open with not a ton of duress coming down the pike towards him, those are not the kind of things that are going to ever allow a team to win at a sustained level.
What did Bill Walsh, the late great Bill Walsh, tell me? And I'll bring it up again. Once the quarterback shows he can do it, it's up to the coach to have to maintain a level of consistency. Now it's on the quarterback. It's on the coaching staff as well. Experience is the best teacher. He does not have much experience at all in the National Football League because of the injury. And then you think about Sam Darnold. Those final 2 games didn't go his way because the O-line struggled and they moved on from Sam. So just the pressure there. Your pressure comes from all different angles. But to know that, hey, Sam's doing this and I'm here with a playoff-ready team, right? That went to the playoffs with Sam last year. Daniel Jones was here. Now he's gone, and I'm the last man standing. Sam was here with me. Daniel was here with me. They're both starting in the NFL, and here I am. Yeah. You could say all you want. And for not having much game experience in the NFL, JJ's feeling a lot of that. He tries to get into that zen. He tries to get into that. You see that? It talks about all those things. So, again, he's young, and experience is the best teacher. We'll see. When we see glimpses and we see, as I say, if you can just bottle it, we've seen times where he looks like Nuke. Remember Nuke when he made that pitch? Wow, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Now, it would have crashed on me. Hey, you're up high, you're hanging this, you're over the place. That's what he needs to do. Maybe crash Davis.
There you go.
To get there with JJ, right? But the bottom line is, it's beautiful when it happens. We saw that. And again, then you see the airmail. So again, just level of consistency is going to have to be there for JJ. But right now, he's so young in terms of the NFL experience that we know what he needs to work on. And certainly he knows what he needs to work on.
Yeah. Someone just needs to tell JJ McCarthy, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains. All right. And that's all the time we have for this edition of First Draft. Again, a few reminders and important ones here. Please scan the QR code that you see on your screen. You can hear all of the conversations we've been having all season long and keep up with us every single week. Please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts, and tune in every Wednesday on the NFL on ESPN YouTube channel, ESPN2, and any of the other myriad places that you can find us. And keep those questions and comments coming using the hashtag FirstDraft. We love to read them. We love to answer them. And every now and again, we will mock and belittle them, but please don't take those personally. So, on behalf of Mel Kiper and Field Yates, I'm Mike Greenberg. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week.